Assalamu alaikum warahmatullah. So the topic is revelation and realization. As Ashraf sir said, it's a vast topic. We cannot really talk about wahy or realization in a very short span of time. But I am trying to point out certain things, certain aspects that often go unnoticed when we talk about wahy or when we talk about revelation. So the first part, like my presentation is basically three simple questions and answer to that questions. The first part is why do we need revelation as humankind, as human beings? Why do we need, or why do we really have the need of revelations? And the second part is what revelations, like if at all there are revelations from God, what revelations do to us? And the last part, what do we do with the revelation? So the revelations can do something to us, and then do we have a responsibility to do something with God's words, with divine revelation, with prophetic revelations? So the first part is why do we need revelations? The idea is like, do we need an external source of information? Do we need a non-human source of information? An information that comes from a non-human entity at all. So there are like different, ideas of man. One is the Darwinian idea of man, like man as an animal who stands at the end of an evolution cycle, or like in the middle of an evolution cycle, who is like an advanced animal. So man is more like an advanced animal in a Darwinian worldview. And we have on the other side a man who is capable of producing art, a man who sings, a man who draws, a man who has wisdom, a man who believes in morality, a man who has ethics. So that sort of a man is, I'm taking the example of Michelangelo's Vitruvian Man, because, that is, the idea of a man who is sort of who found perfection in his capabilities. Right, like, so man is not just an animal. Instead, man is an animal capable of, doing something exceptional, like drawing, arts, like, ethical behavior or morality, things like that. So, the key argument is if, we start from the idea that biological evolution is not random, which means the biological evolution was not produced by as a result of random processes. Like in the Darwinian worldview, the human evolution or the biological evolution is a result of a random process. First there was a cell, and accidentally the cell happens to be something, and as a result of a series of accidents, we have advanced biological beings like humans or monkeys, whatever. So, but we argue that biological evolution is not an accident. It's not a result of accident. It's not a result of a series of accidents. Instead, it was a part of a divine design. Similarly, I try to argue that cultural evolution is also a result of a divine design. Like, we cannot simply have become civilizations. For example, we have multiple animals around us. We have ants who are very advanced in constructing homes. We have honeybees. We have fireflies. All of them are really good at what they do, but none of them has evolved as we have evolved. So there is a difference, right? So there is a distinction, there is a difference in the evolution of human beings as creatures who were capable of producing civilizations, who built pyramids, who built Taj Mahal, who built, Burj Khalifa, or like whatever. All these, the products of culture or civilization. So, my argument is that cultural evolution, our advancement as cultural animals, our advancement in civilization is a result of divine design, and this divine design is given to us, or we got to know about the divine design of culture, or the God's plan on how a culture should be or how human beings should conduct, or how human beings should behave to one another through wahy. So wahy is very important in the divine design aspect of cultural evolution. So Aliya Izabovic, he was former president of Bosnia-Herzegovina, and he has this wonderful book, Islam Between East and West. So he has a long discussion where he makes this difference between civilization and culture, and he argues that culture is, civilization, human civilization is something we cannot explain as a result of, materialistic processes. We cannot say that human, just like monkeys or cows or honeybees or ants evolved. Instead, we evolved as a result of more complicated processes with extra information, with information that came from a non-human source or a divine source. And yeah. So it's an extended reading of Plato's Allegory of Cave. So we have a consensus, at least the argument is like we need an extra source. So how does that extra source work? To talk about that, I'm talking about this, giving this example of Plato's Allegory of Cave. So it's my interpretation of the Allegory of Cave. So in Plato's Republic, Socrates asks Glaucon to imagine a cave where people have been imprisoned from childhood. Suppose there is a cave. It's a very dark cave, and people have been imprisoned in the cave since their childhood. And they haven't seen anything else except the darkness and the shadows in the cave. So the only information, only source of information they have is the darkness in the cave, is the shadows in the cave. So they cannot really evolve. And Socrates further argues that freedom for human, Plato further argues that freedom for human is liberation from the cave, which is the availability of light that comes to the darkness. And Quran in chapter 23, verse number 35, talks about wahy. Nurun ala nur, yahdillahu li nurihi man yasha, wa yadribullahu al-amthali lin-nas. And it's a very beautiful usage that Quran gives us about Quran itself. It is light upon light. Allah guides whoever He wills to His right. So these are like basic arguments I try to put forward. One, there is a cultural evolution which is more nuanced. And in order for the cultural evolution, for the civilization advancement to happen, there is a necessity of an external source of information, which is the divine source. And second part, that divine source is something that helps us to see in the darkness, like Plato says in his Allegory of the Cave. And so what Quran talks about, these are like ayah that describes wahy. In chapter 26, ayah 192, وَإِنَّهُ لَتَنزِيلُ رَبِّ الْعَالَمِينَ. And indeed, the Quran is the revelation of the Lord of the worlds. And chapter number 4, verse 163, is also, the ayah is also talking about how the revelation happened to all these prophets. So there is a certain universal aspect. So everywhere in the world, in whichever form, human beings were always guided by the divine light. So simply we can say, like looking at the civilization advancement, looking at the progress that we have achieved, we can say that it is the proof of revelation. And the second part, like I'll just go quickly through these two parts because maybe you might be familiar with these parts. So what revelation do to us? So now we have this idea that there is revelation which is divine, without which human progress is impossible. And what revelation has done to us? One of the best example of what revelation has done to human beings is Quran. What Quran has done to the Jahiliyyah. So there is a transformation happening, and we can cite multiple examples. I'm just giving this Michael Hart's book, The 100. You might be familiar with the book. And we usually talk about the mention of Prophet Muhammad in the book, Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. But Umar Radiallahu Anhu was also mentioned in the book, like his position was 52nd, even before Julius Caesar. So he argues that Umar as a Sahaba was even better, as a ruler, was even better than Julius Caesar. So this aspect of revelation is that it is not only about the prophet, but it's also about the Sahaba, the companions, and the society. So revelation transformed a society to something noble, something great, something that was unprecedented in history. So revelation has this capacity to transform the age of darkness, the society which stayed in darkness, to something noble, to something great. So from a perspective of liberation, it was one of the most remarkable liberations happened in human history. We can take all histories of liberations, like the blacks' liberation, or like all sorts of liberations that happened in the world. And we can say the liberation movements which were accompanied by a certain divinity, a certain external source, a certain non-human, which has a non-human aspect, always had its own merit. For example, the Islamic society in the Middle Ages, historians argue that it was perhaps the only society which has knowledge at its center. Though we had Greeks, though we had Romans, there were no other societies which has this knowledge as its ethos, as its center. So a transition from the Jahiliyyah to this knowledge society is something made possible by revelation. And the last part is, what do we do with revelation? Now, given that we have Quran with us, we have God's words with us, and now we know that it is the same Quran that changed the Jahiliyyah. It is the same Quran that changed the Arabs in the Jahiliyyah to very noble humans, to a knowledge society. And we have the same Quran, and what do we do with that? So that's the last question. From the George Bernard Shaw is someone who has studied Islam extensively, and he talks about Prophet Muhammad. I have always held the religion of Muhammad in high estimation because of its wonderful vitality. It is the only religion which appears to me to possess that assimilating capability to the changing face of existence, which can make itself appeal to every age. I have studied him about Prophet Muhammad, the wonderful man, and in my opinion, far from being an antichrist, he must be called the savior of humanity. So Islam has this capacity to save humanity, just like it saved the Arabs in the Jahiliyyah. And we have this tradition of reform which is exceptional when we compare it to all other traditions of reform. And Sahabas who traveled and propagated Islam. And in the last sermon of Prophet, he says, all those who listen to me, like in the last Hajjatul Wada, as we are familiar, all those who listen to me shall pass on the words to others, and those who to other again. And that the next part is very important. And may the last ones understand my words better than those who listen to me directly. So Prophet is saying that there might be people who listen to me directly in front of me, but there will be someone in the last who hear it through hadith, through someone else who gave it to them, just like us, right? Now we read hadith from books. Now we learn about the Prophet from books and other Sahabas. So even though we are on the other end of the reception of hadith, we might be able to understand it better, and we might be able to transform the world better. So that is a hope that revelation gives to us. And now I'm just giving a summary of my presentation. So the first argument was a non-human source of information is necessary for human progress. And the second part, similar to biological evolution, our cultural evolution is also guided by a divine design, and revelations are fundamental to this guiding process. The third argument, the transformation brought by Quran exemplifies the radical reconstruction of a society. And about us, the last part, being equipped with Quran, the message of Allah, we are capable of creating a new world order which is far better than what we have now. Thank you.